Ivan just hit me out for an interview, I'm going home. Okay? You don't want my help? I'll go help people that want it. So I'm on my way home.
That's awesome, man. So what, you just bailed? You're like, my dude Ivan's like, we're hopping on a Facebook Live and I'm just bailing.
Straight up. I'm like, bro, there's
That's awesome.
multi-million-dollar makers that want my time. There's people that want to change their lives for success that want my time. You're a hot-nosed kid that tells me that I'm a punk. No, I'm done. I'm going home. I'm going home to make real money.
That is awesome, Avi. That is awesome, man. Oh, that's exactly why I wanted to have you on. Is, you know, me and you linked up recently, and I totally love your energy and your sarcasm. I just bust out laughing, man. I want to give out a few shout outs to some people. We've got Donna joining us in, Elizabeth, we've got Tia. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Make sure you hit that share button if you're tuning in. Let others know that we are live. And I got my man Avi here who's going to be jamming with me. And Donna's like, Ivan, your laughter brings joy to our morning. Well, in that case, I'm only on my first cup of coffee, so imagine how I'll laugh here after the second or third cup of coffee. But thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Avi, my man.
Yes, sir.
What's going on? What's good? How's your day going this morning?
So my day is going absolutely amazing. I woke up early. I have this guy that he's a disabled veteran. And I help him from time to time to go get his meds and go to the bank and whatnot. And I had the opportunity to help him out this morning. I don't always get a chance to get with him. I'm always doing stuff, but when I can, it's nice. You know, I let him share his story. I let him kind of vent because he doesn't have anybody. So I try to just give a little bit of time, you know, per week, even if I can just talk to him on the phone, just to, you know, let him get some of his worry and some of his stress off of his self, because
he
doesn't have his wife. He doesn't have his wife. He doesn't have his son. Like he's going through some very tough times. So if I can be that person to lift him up, I try to do that. And I was trying to fit that in before I got to, you know, the school and whatnot. And then you get to the school and the kids are just out of control. They're jumping on the desk. They don't want to do their work. They don't want to see you. So then it's like you're battling, helping this vet to these kids that don't want to do anything. And then you're like, all right, well, how do I really filter these emotions? Which one do I really gravitate to? Because my morning started awesome, and now I'm in like the heat of the storm. So after this, I'm like, okay, how am I going to stay positive while I'm here? So I look at people's lives. I look at comments. I start to, I take a book with me. I read a book. I write some notes down and stuff like this to keep my mind focused on the good things. But then once it got to the point where, you know, the cup is overflowing, I'm like, you know what? I need to dump this thing out. So in dumping this out, I'm dumping all this other crap with it, and I'm going to focus on what truly matters and what's truly bringing me sustenance, which is my main business.
That's good. That's good, man. I mean, that's good. You know, you're doing something very positive, you know, by the way. It's just that you're doing something good, you know, and that's why I asked you, is because I know you're someone who, at least seen just by your stream, by your news feed, that you're very positive. You know, you're striving for success. You try to do the right thing, you know. So, and with that being said, is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because when me and you chatted, you know, you had a very interesting story. And that's one of the things that I really strive for in this show is to bring other people just like you to share their story and how they got to from where they were many years ago to where they are today, and why they're doing the things that they're doing. Because I think it's important to see the journey in the evolution. So let's start off. You pick if you want to do the short-term version or the long-term version of the story. The long-term version, obviously, is the most interesting one. So let's start with, let's do the long-term version. It's
Definitely.
Who is Avi?
So, long-term version. Okay, you said we got about 3 hours to do this, right?
No.
But
No, not.
Long-term version. I grew up as. Hold on, my mom's probably gonna ask me what I'm doing home already. So you guys can see my.
Oh snap!
Right, Ema. So she's at home working. Where's she at? Ema, I quit my job.
What's?
Yeah, I quit my
Hello?
job. I'm done. All right, so I'm gonna go to my office. That's my mom. She supported me through everything. Okay,
Awesome.
even when I was the worst.
Yeah.
Like, all right, let's just get into this thing. So I grew up Jewish, and that's a very heavy part of my story because with that I grew up in, if you guys are familiar with like Judaism, it's a very structured upbringing. And we grew up like pretty religious and stuff, going to, synagogue every weekend, Bible studies and whatnot. Like my grandfather, I didn't share this with you, but my grandfather was a rabbi. My dad's a rabbi.
Oh, okay.
And I was really heavily immersed into the culture. So with that, I was always, different growing up and going to school and whatnot. I was always like that black Jewish kid. And my dad would come to school and he would share some topics and whatnot when we got time to like the different Jewish holidays. Like he would share about like, Hanukkah, Passover, whatever. Because at the time there was there's actually a lot of involvement. Like people were interested with my culture and stuff. I didn't even like really know that, but it was cool. And people to this day, they still, I remember when your dad used to come to the school and used to present stuff. And I'm like, wow, you remember that? I completely forgot about all that. Like that's
yeah.
I'm gonna. Oh, I had the tripod. All right, but anyway, yeah. So I went to regular school, and then when it came time to high school, I actually switched to a private Jewish school, and that really enhanced my drive to be Israeli, to move to Israel, and to do these things. And when I went to this private Jewish high school, I actually got a chance to go to Israel for a trip. And when I went, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna move here. So I was never really gifted in school. I always got, B's, C's, D's, F's.
Wait, you weren't a straight A student?
Nah. I was terrible. Ema, what they always say, right? I had bad time paying attention, right? I couldn't pay attention. I was always socializing. They were like, look, this kid has potential. He has so much potential if he'll do something with it.
Right.
Now, I'm in school. I'm like, man, school's boring. This isn't what I'm trying to do. So, of course, my potential wasn't being exercised. I played soccer a lot, and that was one of my huge goals and dreams was to be a professional soccer player. Now,
right.
I always knew. Sorry, I'm just getting you guys set up. I always knew that I wanted to be successful. I always knew that I wanted to be wealthy. I always knew I wanted to be rich and have this awesome lifestyle, but I didn't exactly know how to get there. And one of the things I knew was soccer players. Soccer players are wealthy. I was around soccer players all the time. Like, I took soccer serious. Like, so serious that after college, I had the opportunity to possibly go to Brazil, but we'll get to that in a minute. So,
yeah.
Soccer was really my outlet. I didn't really have anything else to look forward to. When it got chance to graduate from high school, it was like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, I don't want to go to college, but I kind of have to. So I ended up going to Rutgers Camden for like a year and a half. I was on the soccer team. I walked on because I was, gifted. And I was just partying. I was partying and playing. And it was like, well, hey, what are you going to do? because my grades were quickly going down. And even though I'm on the team and whatnot, it's like, look, you can't go to the school anymore. So they gave me the ultimatum, like, bro, either you got to get it together or you got to leave. So I was like, you know what, I'll leave. Ended up going to school. I got my automotive certification because, you know, I love cars. And I figured I'm going to follow things I'm passionate in that I love. But it turns out I only like to work on my own cars. So that didn't exactly work. So I'm over here.
Well, you didn't. You weren't working on like that $500 broke down beater. You just worked on yours.
Yo, man, awesome. I'm over here like, bro, you guys got me doing oil changes. I'm trying to drop motors, man. Like, I want to do some custom stuff. They're like, you just got your certification.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
They're like, look at this newbie. He wants to drop motors.
You're going straight to the game. Straight to the game.
So, at the time, I was living in North Jersey. And I ended up, I'm from New Jersey. I didn't say that, but I'm from a small town, New Jersey. It's called Sicklerville. You can find it on the map, but it's there. So, got to the point where it's like I lived in North Jersey. I came back home, didn't really know what I wanted to do or anything again. And my dad and my sister were part of network marketing. So they're like, look, you need to come. And I'm like, well, nah, I don't want to get into that stuff. I listen to your CDs and all that. Like, that's that cult stuff. Like, I don't want it. So they're like, nah, come on. Da-da-da-da. Like, it's going to be good for you. Not doing anything. Anyway, hey, we'll pay for you. And I'm like, oh, you guys are going to pay? All right, I guess I'll go. So I ended up going, and in this meeting, the guy was talking about this thing called the 45-year plan. And basically, long story short, you start working from like 18 to 20. You start to go up this little ladder. You develop this lifestyle, this prestige, this money and everything. And then you hit a certain level at like, 30, 35, something like this, where you kind of get capped off. Or you see like small gains. And then all of a sudden, like, you hit 65, boom. You retire off of a third of what you were actually making. And when I'm like, oh, shoot, like, wait, I'm making this and then I got to go down to this? Nah, that's not part of my plan. I don't want that. Like, that's crazy. And then I look at my dad. I look at the people in the room. I think about the people in my life and I'm like, bro, I want whatever this guy is selling me. Because this guy, he's in a suit, okay? He's teaching me. He's got great information. I don't know how true it is, but the information's good. And I can gravitate towards that. At the time, I hated reading. Really hated reading. But, do I have it over here? I don't have it over here. But,
so wait, the 45-year plan is, in essence, is what most people are accustomed to, right?
Yeah.
Is that you start working at an early age. There's a lot of, there's multiple ways that I think people retire, but one of the oldest ways to retire was, you work a job, you pay your bills and you set some money aside for, retirement and then you retire, right? Like you said, at like 65, which, at the rate that we're going, I'm not going to be able to retire until like 72. And truth be told is that I don't even know if I want to retire. If I keep doing what I'm doing and I love doing it, why retire at 72? But the traditional mindset is that you worked a dead-end job for 45, 50 years. My wife's grandfather worked for the railroad for like 45 years straight out of high school and retired. I bow my hat to him and what he did. But that was the traditional mindset of, working one job. And he was just fortunate enough. And then he was even more fortunate that the railroad has a phenomenal retirement plan. Otherwise, he would have been SOL.
Right. Definitely. 100%. And
Donna says, and they give you a watch.
Right.
There's your souvenir. Here you go.
Here's a nice watch.
And yeah. So 45-year plan, you know, so what did you do with that information? So you took interest. What did you do from there?
I started reading.
Wow. Okay, so you hated reading. How did you pick up a book and manage to read it is what I want to know.
The guy, he sold me on it, okay? Because he's like, look, you got to really start thinking big, okay? And if you don't think big, you're always going to have small stuff. And I'm like, yo, it's so simple, but it's so true. I have to think differently. So I wasn't there yet, but he was like, look, if you want to get started, read this book. So I'm like, all right, The Magic of Thinking Big. All right, I'll take a look at it. I'll check it out. So I started reading it, and it started making sense to me. And I'm like, yo, this book is simple, but it's so impactful. And you'll get to this part where it talks about this thing called excusitis, where we start to make excuses for our excuses. And it's like, bro, why am I making excuses when there's no need for an excuse? And it really turns into this disease that you make up an excuse for everything. And I found myself in this position. I'm like, bro, whoa. I'm a liar. I'm such a liar. I'm such an excuser. I'm such a loser. I need to do something better with my life. So I moved to Israel.
You know, so, okay, that was an interesting 360 right there. That's for sure. You know, I mean, truth be told, is a lot of people try to find excuses as a way to get out of something, you know. And you made some very interesting points that, you know, I wanted to touch upon. So Tia just mentioned that her mom's family worked in the railroad too. Yes, you know, they built the backbone of America, and I'm eternally grateful for them because that was in the early days. But the reality of things is people make excuses because they think that that's going to give them instant gratification. And it doesn't. All it does is it pushes a problem further down the road. It's like they say, keep on kicking that can down the road type of thing. Well, that's precisely it. Is people don't understand. And here's the most frustrating thing is just that why I'm expanding upon this is that people think that excuses is going to help them progress. No, they're degressing is what they're doing. And a lot of people try to make themselves believe that excuses is going to give them the things that they want. It's going to help them accomplish things. And they get so frustrated when they see someone else that, you know, is doing the things that they want. They're going after what they love, their passion, their dreams, their goals. And it's unrealistic, you know, for them. And they're like, oh, I'll just keep making excuses. So you move to Israel and you're like, all right, I'm going to flip my life upside down. Like I'm going to clean the slate, right? So you get to Israel. What happens next?
I get to Israel and it's a whole nother world. I don't know. Like, you know, I grew up Jewish, so I was around it a little bit, like the language and the brand, all that stuff. But when you actually go there and the training wheels are taking off, it's like, wow, I don't even know any of this stuff. Like, throw all that out the window. So I had to go back to the basics on just trying to get, like, some milk. I can't even get milk. You know? So I had to, like, go back to being an infant pretty much and learn everything from the basics. Milk, water, highs, goodbyes. You got to learn the mannerisms because Americans are different than other people. And Israelis have a different mindset too. So it was a lot of development.
Well, you said something. You talked about proximity of Americans. Did you know that, and not to come across condescending to anybody, but Americans like their space. As an Eastern European, I can tell you this much. You go across the pond anywhere, you'll see closer proximity with people. You know, they like to come up close and talk to you. And it's a cultural thing. It's just that it's a communication thing. And I think in America, we become so used to kind of like creating our own space and like this bubble that, you know, we've got like this territory that we've charted. And most people are afraid because when you overstep someone's boundaries, you know, they feel threatened. So what did it feel like, you know, being being an alien in a country that you knew no language, you knew, and I've been there. That's just it, is when I immigrated here, you know, from Eastern Europe at the age of 13, 14, I was very much like you. Like, I knew zero English, literally. Like, I was walking around, everybody was looking at me. I was like, who's this kid with the long hair and big-ass glasses? And probably got a nasty whiff to him, and nobody wanted to talk to me, you know? So how did you blend in? I mean, how did you learn the language? How did you learn the basics? What did that feel like?
So, basically, I immersed myself into it. I like, it got to a point where, because I was married, I was with my ex-wife at the time, and she was like, I feel bad, you know, you're not going out, like, da-da-da-da. So it started creating some issues in our relationship. So I was like, all right, you know what, I'm just going to go outside. All right? I'm just going to go outside. I'm just going to do it. So I went outside, and I didn't really know. I knew, like, the basic hellos, goodbyes, but
yeah,
I went to the soccer field. That was what I was already comfortable with. Okay, so if I can give you advice, if you're going into a new territory, go somewhere that you're comfortable. Okay, if you like art, find an art place that you can just be yourself in, and you don't really have to speak with your words. You can speak with what you're doing. So when I was playing, I would be playing with little kids and like some adults and whatnot playing soccer, and they would be like, "Oh, this guy's really good." So they would be talking to me in Hebrew. I wasn't understanding, but they would like point and whatnot, and I would try to connect the dots in my own head.
Yep.
And I would just speak to them in English, like, I don't know, like.
English, well, you said body language. You know, that's a really important point. Is this that? That's exactly what I did when I first moved here. Is that I knew some basic words. I mean, it took me like 3 months to start developing basic conversations with kids. You know, middle school, high school. You know, when I first moved here. But what you were saying is this body language is universal. It's a universal language. It's like they say that sports is a universal language. Well, body language is a universal language.
Right.
When you think about it, is that you don't have to say anything. It's your gestures that you can actually communicate with just about anybody just through gestures, because you can see what the body language is, you know, indicating. For instance, if someone is doing this, right, that probably means come here, right? Right? Mm-hmm. Or if you're out on the soccer field and someone goes like this, right? Maybe they're saying, well, maybe we should team up, or let's play together, right? So, like, the point behind the universal language, and I think a lot of people, you know, don't think about that, you know? So you're using body language to blend in, right? So what's next? You're out on the field, you're playing. You know, how did you learn the language and all the basics?
So I pretty much started just connecting the dots. Like when they would say like roots. It's like run. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I start running, and then I knew people that knew the language. So I would take my own data and I'd be like, okay, roots. What does this word mean? What is roots? Because I hear roots all the time, and it's like run.
Right.
Okay. Now I hear smola. What does smola mean? It means left. I hear yamina a lot. What does yamina mean? Right. So I received the information. I connected with somebody that could decode it for me in my own language, and I took bits and pieces at a time. I didn't try to learn everything because it's impossible. But the things that I heard were common or that were used very often, look, I need to know this because this is very important. Too many people are talking about it. Okay? What is atzo? Atzo. It means stop. Stop. Don't go. So, looking at the body language, hearing the tone, right? Body language, listening to the tone, and trying to connect the dots with my own universe, and like you said, going to that other dimension, because you can't be on the physical level. You're not going to understand what they're saying. You have to go beyond yourself, because your physical is going to be like, I don't know. But the spiritual is going to be like, I understand.
Right. So, well, most people be like, I'm running for the hills, man. I don't know what these people are saying. I don't know what these people are doing. I'm running for the hills, you know? So the fact that you're like, I mean, that's courageous, man. Like right there. I mean, I've been there, and like that's an immense amount of courage, honestly, to take that leap and blend in and express yourself through body language. Because here's something else that comes to mind is what you were doing is this, you were actually cooperating. You were striving to coexist in a foreign environment. And here's the reality of things. I mean, this is how mind-boggling this is. And I don't know if this is like forces of nature or law of attraction, but it's like people know. They can sense that energy from you. And when you were out there on that field and, you know, you're trying to play with these kids and, you know, they can see that you have a common interest. It's soccer, which, by the way, it's football. It's right. Football. It's football. It's not soccer. It's football. F-U-T-B-O-L. It's football, right? Yep. Football, right? So you're out there on the field, and they can see that you have a common interest. You're playing. They can see your body language. And so what happens next? So, I mean, like, you were doing more and more of this, and what was the outcome? What did you start to see eventually?
They actually, I started playing with some of the, because they had a city team. So they kept inviting me to come play. Even though I didn't know English, they were like, we see that he wants to succeed. We see that he wants to, he's enjoying himself. And they want more of that. So I ended up meeting some of the players that played with the city team, and they brought me to play with them. Now, I didn't get a chance to actually play on the team, but they invited me to do tryouts. I was practicing with them like every night. Now, if I would have had an agent, if I would have been better with the language, I possibly could have been a pro soccer player. But I wouldn't. If I would have done that, I wouldn't be here talking to you.
Right.
So, that led me to go to different vacations with them, different tournaments. And then that led me to start to travel on my own and start to do things on my own and start to really keep lighting the fire on this thing. Because once you start to see success, you got to keep that momentum going. And I just kept it going. So I ended up getting a job. Started working at a barbed wire factory. My Hebrew was improving. I was getting better. And I was like actually one of the top barbed wire makers there. We would go ahead.
So did you? Okay, so how did you get that job? Like, I mean, were you at a point to where you were versed enough to where like you could walk in and like, you know, make a basic convo?
Well, what happened was I had a friend help me get the job.
Yeah.
And I knew enough Hebrew that I can do the basics and I can listen and I'm not a danger.
Okay.
So once I had the basics, they pretty much built more onto that. And I'm grateful because the people that were around me, they knew that I could pick the stuff up fast because I was into it.
Yeah.
They were willing to teach me. They were like, look, we can't really hold your hand through it, but if you're willing to learn, we'll bring you through, but you got to learn very quickly. And I'm like, that's all I need. Just give me an opportunity. I was like, putting machines together and whatnot. I never seen these machines in my life, but they showed me once or twice. I start putting it together. I'm like, all right, I'm good. I got this. So
one shot.
Right. But I was patient. I looked at every detail, how he was pulling it, how he was holding it, how he was mending it. I'm like this on the guy. Like, I need to see every detail if I'm going to get this right. And a lot of us, we lose that focus. We lose that attention. And that's why we don't do everything to the 100th degree.
You know what's real interesting is you like literally put your face up to the screen so close, and had that been in America, I'd be like, whoa, bro, step back, a little too close, man. I gotta have my space. Hey, don't be coming in my coffee. That's too close.
Right, exactly. And that was one of the things, because, like, in America, you're like, oh, what? Like, why are you touching me? In Israel, everybody's, like, smacking you and touching you and trying to, like, get on you. And when people pass you by in the street, they, like, bump into you and stuff. And you're like, like, I'm my bubble. but there's no bubble.
Yeah.
You just move. And like when people bump into you in Israel, like here you're automatically like excuse me, like I'm sorry. But in Israel, people are moving. They're not worried about you bumping into them. They're going. Like
you know, you know what was really interesting about that is this why I brought this up is so being raised in Eastern European is like, you know, my family was always very close. Like and I think it was a cultural thing where, like, for instance, you know, when you were talking to someone, right, it was a sense of expression, I think, is that, you know, you would put your hand on their shoulder as if like it was a sign of affirmation, I think, right? And I think in America, it's one of those things like, you know, you touch someone on their shoulder, it's like, what are you doing, man? You washed your hands? Let me put your hands on my clothes, you know? So it's like, and I understand the multicultural differences, I really do, but you know, those were some things that I struggle with too. Being a young kid is just that to be very respectful of everyone's boundaries and knowing that proximity is, because there's a lot of people that are, I mean, there's claustrophobic people that they just don't, you know, don't come near them. You know, it's like, and so I think this is kind of like a safety net, you know, keeping your distance from people. But the more and more I think about it is, you know, especially in business, I think sometimes that when people see you kind of keeping your distance, they kind of start to sense kind of like fear. But if you come too close, it's kind of like you got to be in between, right?
Right.
So you got these guys that are like, you know, coming over you and like, hey, Avi, how's it going, man? And, you know, like they're wanting to help you. I mean, what did I feel like? Because, I mean, here's an American kid who's like, got some Israeli dudes coming over and like invading your space, right? And you're like, so how did you take that? I mean, what was that like experiencing that?
Well, because I moved there when I was like 22.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to get over myself.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, when you're at that age, you're so rooted in your beliefs and your mindset and whatnot. But I was willing to embrace something different. So if that was, and just like you said, I wanted to succeed in the culture, and I was kind of around it in high school a little bit with, because my friends were Israeli and whatnot, but it wasn't like this hard. Like now it's like, bro, people are like on you and they're like, oh, Mako Echi, like what's going on? And you're like, bro, like you're in my face, man. You're in my face. Like, you're not on it, you're in it. Like
that's awesome.
So you kind of just have to like get over yourself and let people, because you also have to understand that people, they also need that touch. They also need that love. And with you just being like, all right, you know, just hug on me, that helps them feel better. And you actually feel better too when you get that connection, when you stop fighting it. Because you need hugs. We need that. Everybody needs that closeness, because when you don't have that touch, you're rigid. You have walls up, right? Yes. You're unpersonable when you're not touchy-feely, not being over the top, but you gotta have some physical touch in there. Now, some people do go over the top, and you gotta, all right, you know, 5 seconds is good, but once you get to 6, I'm gonna have to, you know, hit you with the pole, all right? Like, you know, you're hanging on, like, because I don't know if you know, but they do the long hold on. And you're like, all right, like, you've been holding on to my neck for like a whole 20 minutes. Like, the conversation's been done. Like, can you let me go?
Yeah. It's, well, I got I mean, I'm Eastern European, man. I mean, we go for the long hold. It's like, you know, you wrap your arms around and it's like, but what's really interesting is, you know, my brother-in-law, whose parents are Italian and German, and he's in sales too. And, you know, he's like the most long haul guy. You know, he was born here, and like it's kind of mind blowing because I've never really seen anyone really go for the long haul. So yeah, you're right. Like I remember growing up that, like, you know, doing math homework. I remember like in third, fourth grade before we moved here, that my dad would like come over and kind of, you know, I'll be working on my math homework, and like he'd put his hands on my shoulders and like he'd just be like staring over me, and like had this been here, I'd be like, get the hell off me. Like I'm trying to focus. I'm trying to do math homework, but that was a cultural thing. You know, it was a sense of expression and he had the best of intentions. You know, I knew that. And of course, as a father, that was his way of caring that he was there, that he was present. Also, but the cultural aspect of that is, I mean, you know, when I go back home and see family, it's like, man, it's the long hold.
Yeah.
You know, especially, I haven't seen some of my family across the pond in a long time. And luckily for me, I've got immediate family here. But some of my other family, you know, cousins and so on and so forth, across the pond, dude, we go for the long hold, man. Like everybody. Like,
that's right.
We would just hug, and it's just like, you know, we're hugging for like, you know, 20 minutes or something, you know. But you know, like you said, you made a very good point, is you gotta have that touch, you gotta have that feel, you know, because it doesn't matter if it's people that you don't know, friends, family, you know, that gesture is priceless. You know, it just really intertwines with, you know, your relationship. And, you know, I think that's probably something that really attributed to, you know, you being so optimistic and welcoming and, you know, embracing this multicultural change that really kind of helped you blend in, that you weren't, you know, envisioned as an alien. I mean, oh my God, I remember being young, like, you know, kids didn't want to talk to me, man, because I look different, I talk different.
Right.
You know, and you kind of go through this, you know, roller coaster of trying to blend in. So, all right, so you get your first job, you know, what happens next? What's Avi doing after that?
The job was great, whatnot, but I always knew that I was going to have to go into the Israeli army. So.
Wait, how old are you anyway?
When I'm doing this, I moved there when I was 21.
Dude, you look like you're in your 20s, man.
Yeah, I'm 28 right now.
Okay. So that was 7 years ago?
Yes, sir.
When you moved there? And I didn't ask you this when me and you talked, but, you know, how long were you in Israel?
For 3 years. I was there from
years? Okay.
October 2010 to, like, November 2013.
Yeah. So going in the army, by the way, is a requirement, right? In Israel. So let's talk about that. What was that like? Because, you know, you're 21 years old, you moved to Israel, and now you're required to go in the Israeli army, which, by the way, is one of the toughest military services in the world to go into. What did that feel like?
Well, I'm not going to go into, like, too much detail, but it was extremely intense and very eye-opening, very challenging. It really made me become the person that I am, because my job in there was to be a corrections officer. They recruited me into the military police. I was a corrections officer, and they liked how I was handling myself, so they ended up putting me in the solitary confinement unit. So, working in solitary confinement, I was dealing with people that were trying to kill themselves, that were trying to kill other people, that were trying to kill me, people that didn't want to eat, they didn't want to do anything, like all types of people. And the main job being a corrections officer in the army is you gotta get people's mindsets to go back into their service. So you're getting people that they don't want to do their job, they got the wrong job, they don't want to do anything, or like all types of stuff. And you gotta like psychologically get this person to be inspired or motivated to do their army service when you don't even want to do yours. You know, so you're overcoming like all these huge challenges. You're seeing all this crazy stuff, and you have to like keep doing your job. Like there's this one, I had to untie this guy because he ended up hanging himself. So the guy was like turning blue and all this stuff, and it was just ridiculous. And all you can think of is like, yo, how am I supposed to, go back to my job when I just had to save somebody's life, and people are slitting their wrists and all this stuff, and you're like, I have to act like everything's normal. I have to continue doing my job like it's normal, even though all this stuff is going on around me.
Right.
So that really makes you callous to a lot of things because it's kind of like, oh, you know, they're gushing out blood, but are the rest of the soldiers put away? Like, is this happening? Is this happening? Like, so you don't really get to feel a lot of emotions at the time, and you have to suppress a lot of things.
Yeah.
And also having to fight people every day, having to handcuff people like every 5 minutes, like it really gets to you.
Well, what did you? So, I mean, you went into this, you know, as a correctional officer. I mean, what was the first thought that ran through your mind? I mean, most people were been like, "What the hell did I get myself into?" and probably just bail, right? So, what was your?
You want to know the truth? And excuse my language, but
yeah,
I'm not a bitch.
Oh man. Well, I mean, that was precisely actually why I asked the question. Myself. Yep. You know? Well, look, the reason I asked that question is because, look, I don't know anybody that first of all would have, you know, surrendered to the circumstances, you know, and taken on the challenge head on. Right. Because from what I know, and this is just my brief knowledge about the Israeli army, and when you go into it, that it's probably one of the most tedious of processes. I mean, both of my parents went into the army. They were required to, you know, and I've heard some freaking crazy ass stories, to be honest with you, and I've heard some crazy ass stories that I've had, you know, friends here in the military in the U.S. as well. But I know in terms of the Israeli army, because of like Krav Maga and, you know, being the front line of defense and the way you're being trained and going through this intense training, which obviously, you know, you didn't go through because they placed you as a correctional officer, but still, you were within the vicinity.
Our training was ridiculous. Like, I think our training is even more tedious. There's a little background. Our training was even more tedious because it was, how do you say it? Like order. So it's like they would make you run over here and stand in groups. And you had to make sure that your line was perfect. And everybody had to be lined up by the time that the watch was done. And if anybody was like itching or anything, you had to go run somewhere else, line up again, and stand for 20 minutes. Go line up, stand for 20 minutes. Go line up, stand for 20 minutes. All right, do a chet. All right, go in the lines. Do another chet, go into lines. Go run over there. Push-ups. Stand up. Sit down. Push-ups. Stand up. Sit down. Push-ups. Stand up. Sit down. Run over there. Okay, everybody stand in a straight line. Okay, right. I want a chet. Everybody, hands by your side. He didn't have his hands by your side. Everybody has to run over here. Everybody, run.
Wow.
They would do this like in a matter of like 20 minutes, like 50 times. Like if you really just if you just did like that, all right, because Abraham wanted to, you know, scratch his shoulder, you guys got to do it all the way over there.
So you're going like, ah!
Right. And
that's people were what's going through your head, right?
And people were breaking left and right. They're like, oh, I'm not doing this. Da, da, da. They're like, what? You're not doing this? You're over here. You are a soldier of the Israeli army. You're quitting right now? But you better stand up with your legs right next to each other, hands by their side, because you are a warrior. Okay? You are a warrior. And you're like, bro, I just want to sit down for 5 minutes. And they're like, no, you don't sit down.
You sit down for 5 minutes, then everybody else gets penalized, and you start all over again, back to square one, right?
Exactly. And they would do this from like 5:30 in the morning to like 9:30, 10, 11 o'clock at night.
That's insane.
All day.
That's insane.
They get you like this.
Right.
But once you get into the army jail, you have to be like this because people they don't work with flesh. They work on a spiritual level. So it's very animalistic. So like I said, going back to that I'm not a bitch thing, when they brought you into the jail, you had to project that energy. Like, yo, I'm the boss in here. Even though you're not in that job yet. You have to act like it because they know that you're coming, that you're the next people that are going to take the position. So they're already sizing you up. So once I got in there, I had to be like, yo, I'm the man in here. I'm making this happen, and nobody else is going to stop me. So that's why they put me in the solitary confinement unit, because I was just like, yo, I'm rock hard, and we're doing this thing. This is what I came here for. Because I did want to do the Army. You know, is one thing that, you know, I have military in my family. So it was one thing that brought me a lot of honor, and it's one thing that I really wanted to do. And being in the Israeli Army, just like you said, it's very prestigious. So to have that in my resume is awesome. So moving forward.
Well, the thing of it is, you know, one thing that you mentioned is that, you know, it was a true test of endurance also. Yeah. You know, that's really, I think, what it's all about, is because, you know, as someone who hasn't been in the Army, had I been back home at the age of 17, I would have been drafted, you know, to go into the Army, you know. So, you know, to be able to go through that test of endurance, I mean, look, man, I don't know a lot of people that will be able to go through something like that. If they did, you know, it's a truly life-changing experience. For one, I think it's physical and mental toughness, if anything, which, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, it's important to have. And I'm sure that, you know, you going through this experience, you know, really kind of prepped you for all the challenges ahead, right? So you were in the Army, you got down with the Army. You know, what happened next after the Army?
After that, I left. I stayed in Israel for a little bit. I was working on the Israeli stock exchange, doing binary options, trading Forex. But I was an account manager, helping other people trade, establish accounts, scale their accounts, different things like that. And then my intuition called me back home. Things weren't working out with my ex-wife and whatnot, and I was just ready to do something different. So came back home. My friends from high school that were Jewish and whatnot, they invited me to come work with them in Ohio because they started their own businesses and whatnot, doing custom apparel. Started working with them as a store manager, started to learn, like, you know, all the basics in business, profit margins, expenses, how to recruit people, how to do your payroll, like all that nitty gritty stuff I started learning because I'm working in this. I was leader in sales in the state for their company. I hired some great people that are also leading in sales and whatnot. But then they started getting funny when the slow season came, and I started to understand that you can't do business with all your friends. So I moved back home.
You mentioned something is that I think one of the biggest misconceptions here is that, and I have mixed feelings about this, is that, you know, some people, like I know my cousin back home has built an empire with a lot of his high school friends, you know, and I think that goes to, you know, the fact that you do business with people you like, right? But the reality of things is, at what point do you draw that fine line, right? Because you know that at some point or another, you know, your friends are going to take advantage of the situation. They're going to try to get an upper hand, or, you know, I've heard, you know, horrific stories. I've had some of my own about partnerships too. Like, you know, people go in with best intentions, and, you know, next thing you know is that, you know, the sky's falling down on you, and you're like, what the hell happened, right? So you did you get in business with friends, or you were just learning from them?
I was just working for them pretty much. Now, I was under the impression that they were going to train me up to work with them, but they wanted me to work for them. So I was like, you know what? Nah, I'm done. And you guys don't even want to pay me what I'm worth. Like, I see the other store managers, not in my company, but in the mall, because I was working at a mall. And I'm like, look, this is what they're making. I want to make somewhere around that. But if you can't pay me that, then I'm going to have to leave. So
yeah,
I ended up leaving. I came back home. Another friend that I went to school with, public school, he had his own company doing printing business signs, T-shirts, flyers, graphic design, pamphlets, books, pretty much anything printing. It was done, and we did it. We went to businesses. We hung signs up. We did decals on walls. We did decals on windows. Like all types of stuff. Like you name it.
Yeah.
Learned a lot about graphic design there. Learned a lot more about business because he started sending me to business meetings and business lunches and networking events and different things like that. So I started to really hone in on this whole business thing. Even though I started way back with the network marketing, now it started to become real in my own life. So,
So fast forward, you know, because I'm trying to be respectful of time too. So you're learning, networking. So what is that all that led you up to what you're doing today? And what is it that you're doing today? Let's talk a little bit about that.
All that led up to what I'm doing today. Now, when I was working at that printing company, I started my business. Started working on developing my website. This was maybe 3 years ago. Okay? Started working on websites. Started working on how to get my media and stuff together. Started to produce some inspirational, some informational, valuable content. You can go way back. You'll see when I started to do videos. And they were real choppy. They were real crappy. They were bad. But the information was good. And I didn't have enough confidence in myself at the time and confidence in my information to really go into this thing. So moving forward into now, I've been working with, you know, different clients all over the world. And I'm like, okay, I can really do this thing. This past year, I released my first online course that I put together all by myself, from the words to the video editing. The only thing I didn't do was the music, but everything else I've created. And I was like, wow, if I can do all these things, I wonder how much stuff other people can do that they're not doing. Like in just 3 years, my life has completely changed. And this year, I'm scaling my business to be over 6 figures. Like well over 6 figures. So with that being said, I'm like, you know what? I need to show other people how they can develop their mindsets for success. Because all it comes down to is realizing that you can do whatever you put your mind to. There's support, okay? There's information. There's leverage. There's everything you need is right here. But you have to see it. You have to believe it, you have to see it, and you have to work towards it.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple things you mentioned is that, you know, practicality is, I think, something that a lot of people struggle with. You were talking about, you know, learning from friends, and then eventually your friends kind of immersing you, you know, into the business side of things more and more often, because you were starting to learn, you were starting to pick up new information, you were continuously curious. But at the end of the day, is this that, you know, and this is something that a lot of people in business strive for indefinitely, is practicality. It's how do you become, you know, good at something? Well, you become good at something by practicing it over and over. You know, practice makes perfect. You do it for so long to where you get to a point to where you've got a process down and you got a way of doing things, and that's generating results, right? So this was a really good conversation, man. I mean, your story is, and there were, you know, a lot of bits and pieces of this that I didn't know, you know, from when we initially talked. So it was really interesting to hear about, you know, the evolution from all the way back to when you were a teenager to, you know, what you're doing today. The one question I want to ask you is, what's Avi passionate about?
Avi is passionate about, one word answer, success. I'm very passionate about succeeding. Because since I started developing my mindset for being better, I strive to do that each and every day, and that's success to me. Every day that I do something that takes me to a higher level, I feel successful, and I can go to sleep easy. Doesn't matter if it's just reading a book. If I feel that I have gone to another level, I'm happy.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you one more question in addition to that, because this kind of goes in congruence with my question is, what in your opinion is the definition of success?
The definition, in my opinion, of success would be you wake up, you know what it is that you want,
mm-hmm.
you know what it's going to take to get there, and you're willing to make the sacrifice to do it. And you take action to make it happen. That is the definition of success to me. The person that knows what it is
mm-hmm.
and does it.
Very well said. Very well said. And I'm sure you were able to pick up that there was a specific intent of why I asked that question, is because I think everyone's definition of success is different, because everyone has different priorities in terms of what success means. Success in a lot of people's minds is wealth. Wealth usually attributed to monetary wealth. Like, you know, you want to make a lot of money. You want to be a billionaire. You want to be a gazillionaire. You want to have fancy cars. You want to have the big house. You want to have, a lot of people want to have a family. I mean, that's their definition of success. So, and that's something I'm starting to ask on the show more and more often, is because as I talk to different people, as I try to gauge what their definition of success is, because it helps me understand what their goals are. And, if we look at some of the most successful leaders in the world, also look at how does that compare to, like the Oprah Winfrey's of the world, or the Elon Musk's of the world, or the Bill Gates, of the world, or the late Steve Jobs. Some of the most successful people that not necessarily just have built businesses, successful businesses, but people who have found a counterbalance in life. And this is exactly what the show is about, is why it's called Jigs and Puzzles, is because it is about life, family, and business, and talking to people like you and others who share their story on how they're putting the pieces to the puzzle together, and that being life. Because we're all human beings, we all live one life, and we all have the same opportunities. Some have, bigger opportunities, some have smaller opportunities. Avi, it was a pleasure chatting with you, man. I love laughing with you. I love your sense of sarcasm, and I love the energy that you brought to the show. One last thing that I wanted to ask is, how can people connect with you if they want to reach out?
You can connect with me on my Facebook. Just send me a friend request. I would say my name. It's Avidon M. Respes, but you can't type it. So if you see it, just definitely send me a friend request. I'm on Timeline. Check me out on Instagram, YouTube. If you go on YouTube, just type in my name. Working on some very big things. You can also check out my website. I don't know if I can drop the link or...
Yeah, go ahead. Drop the link. Yeah.
Should I drop it in here or...
No, just go ahead and throw it out. Just throw it out. Okay. There's no way to put it up on the screen.
www.briods.com. That's briods.com.
Briods.com. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Well, Avi, man, this was an absolute pleasure jamming with you. Just in closing, for those watching the replay, this was episode 9 of... Oh, there it is. You just dropped it in the comments. Yeah, duh. We should have done that. So I'm going to throw it up on here. Briods.com. Make sure you check it out, guys. This was episode 9 of Jigs and Puzzles show with my man, Avi, who shared his story. It was a phenomenal story. Make sure you watch the replay. And if this is your first time tuning into Jigs and Puzzles, the show airs every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at a new time now, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. With that, thank you guys so much. Hope you have a blessed day. My man, Avi, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye. Have a blessed day.
Take care.